Sing me a song of the loss that is gone, say could that last be I? Mary of soul, she sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Bell and breeze on islands and seas, mountains of rain and sun. All that was good, all that was fair, all that was near is gone.
Good evening and welcome to Inverness Outlanders Live. My name's Bruce McGregor. I'm in Inverness and joining us is Caroline Keith, who's in her sitting room.
Sitting room on the Black Isle, yes.
It's as far as we've been allowed to go recently, but of course this programme comes to you monthly and we try and look at the real stories, the places, the people, the myths and the legends that have inspired the Outlander books and TV series. And we've got a very special one for you tonight, Caroline, don't we?
Well, I would like to, before we even start, when I say it's all about Shinty and Shinty being a sport, I don't want people to turn off and go away. I mentioned to a friend earlier on today that we were talking about Shinty, and no names to be mentioned, Paul, but he decided he maybe wasn't going to watch. And I said, well, you'd be missing out on a lot of good stuff. If you're an Outlander fan, stick with us, because it's not really about sport. We've got lots of good, juicy gossip for you that you probably won't have heard anywhere else.
And loads of music.
Loads of music. Thank you very much, Bruce, for all your musical inputs. And of course, Shinty appeared in the first series of Outlander. There was a big Shinty game. So that's one of our main reasons for focusing on it. But also, Men in Kilts, a couple of years ago when Sam and Graham were first going around the country, they actually ended up playing or getting taught how to play the game by one of the Inverness Outlander members and her two daughters and one of their friends. Now, we really hoped that that was going to make it into the TV series because it was in the Clanland book. Unfortunately, it didn't make the cut of the film because they chose to use rugby instead. But as a result of the programme going out and the footage not being used, Julie actually had her own footage and images, so we're able to share that with everybody tonight later on in the show.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And of course, Sam has got a bit of more of an affinity. He seems to be growing into the role of cultural ambassador for Scotland and Shinty, indeed, doesn't he?
It does. Well, we've got a great little story here for you to start the show with, because back in 2016, Sam had the honour of being the Grand Marshal of Tartan Day Parade out in New York. Now, he was following in the footsteps of Sir Sean Connery, of Brian Cox, Kevin McKidd, and in fact, in 2015, Graham McTavish was the Grand Marshal. Now, in 2016, the Glenurquhart Shinty Club, very local here to Inverness, were approached by the then president of the Tartan Day Parade Committee and asked to come out to New York to take part in the parade and to do a demonstration match in Central Park. Now, that's not an invitation you'd turn down lightly. So they got a big group of them together and went out to New York. But that meant a lot of equipment, and they took with them one extra Shinty stick, a caman. Now, this was organised by Gary McIntosh, who was the club president of Glenurquhart at the time. And he was taking that stick out to give it to Sam Hewen. Now, that was all the camans were supplied by Tenera Camans here in Inverness. And a side story that I'd like to say, as long as I remember to come back to the original story, which I've a very good habit of always doing, but the aside story is that Tenera Camans here in Inverness, run by Alan McPherson, it's one of the very, very few Shinty stick makers here in the UK, but it's known as the go-to Shinty stick maker. Tenera Camans. Now, they were approached by the Outlander production team back in 2013, 2014, and asked to supply all the shinty sticks for the shinty scene in the first season of Outlander. But unfortunately, Tenera were just too busy and couldn't supply the sticks. And I'm told that it's very obvious that the quality of the sticks that are used in Outlander is not quite the same quality as Tenera camans. Anyway, back to my story. I did remember. We've actually got some footage from the Tartan Day Parade of Sam being presented with the caman by the Glenurquhart Shinty team. Now, he was on the top of a double-decker bus, and just in the middle of the parade, their paths crossed and they were able to hand over the shinty stick at that point. And have we got that footage there, Joe?
I was watching that earlier, Caroline, and of course we've clipped it a little bit there.
Because
it looks like he's trying to give the stick back, and everyone's going, no, it's for you.
No, absolutely. Honestly, later on in that clip, he is just, he starts hollering and shouting. He's so pleased to have that stick in his hand. Now, the story continues because he actually wanted to take the stick, obviously wanted to take the caman home with him. But when he got to the airport, he was not allowed either to take it on board the airplane or put it in the hold. He had to leave it in the States. Now, word got back to Alan at Tenera. So he approached Sam and offered to make him a completely new caman stick. Now, Sam, as you can well imagine, was absolutely delighted to have his own Tenera caman stick once again. And when you see the shots later on in the programme of Julie and her daughters with Sam and Graham, that is the stick that he has in his hand at that point. It's his own stick. So he's obviously very proud of the fact that he owns a Tenera caman shinty stick.
No, it's great. And we've also, later on in the programme tonight, we've got a couple of shinty stars who appeared in that first the first series. And anybody in Inverness who knows Glenn will be very surprised with this first photograph. He looks decidedly...
That's Glenn Tonkin from Newtonmore Rugby Club, Shinty Club.
He does not look like that normally. And also, I think this is Scott as well, getting dressed for the occasion as well.
Yeah, he was captain of Newtonmore back when they won the cup for the first time in 25 years.
Yeah, so you had a good chat with Glenn, which we'll hear later on. But I was lucky enough, I've known Gary Innes for many, many years. He's a fantastic musician. He is in a band called Manran, who we actually found out Sam is a huge fan of and tweets all their gig info right across the world. He's also a fellow BBC Radio Scotland presenter. He presents Take the Floor, one of Radio Scotland's most popular programmes. And he was, of course, a Fort William star, winning the cup, which is the CAMANACHD Cup, and he was also captain of Scotland. He's had an amazing career. He has retired from playing shinty now, and he's got a wife, a small girl, and another one on the way. So he's got no time for shinty on his hands. But we had a great wee chat with him. He also composed this song, which we are about to hear, which is all about his days playing shinty, and it's sung by Robert Robertson, who we'll hear of more.
Historic, evolved and mature, like cask strength whiskey, so strong and so pure. You captured our heart, hold on with some style. Our Highland religion drip fed as a child, an education of sorts, a mark of respect. To play this old sport, help villages connect. For those who've not seen it, it's hard to explain just how much pride we have in our game. It's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear to commandeer the heart of the caman man. From the dawn of time through mist-covered glens, clans once gathered, there were hundreds of men. Now we call time, they'd last many days, wearing full Highland dress with their tartan plaids. For 90 short minutes we'd contest and collide, and once it's all over, cast difference aside, an offer of hand to greet one another, a nod of respect for your wood-swinging brothers. It's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear to commandeer the heart of the caman man. Once my best friend, my release from life's throes, but now it feels right that I should let go. I've had my time, which is hard to admit. Life ever-changing, no time to commit. Oh, I'll miss to stand as 12 healthy men, to toss a coin on which end to defend. Hear the whistle ring out as the ball's thrown high. 50 bright eyes cast towards the sky. Take a knock, take a bang, take a smack, take a clatter. In years to come, none of it will matter. To run like the wind and to leap like the salmon. A small price to pay to say you've held a caman. It's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear, dear heart of the caman man. You'll continue to grow, gather tales on your way. I'll never forget what my days. We stood together as one, hand in hand. The pipe band tuned up at the back of the stand. Those fond memories I'll hang on as I dust off a glass to pour a large measure to our ancient sport, to Scotland's fine song. I toast your health, my heart you've won. It's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear to commandeer the heart. Oh, it's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear to commandeer the heart. Oh, it's the game of the Gaels, the language of our clans. No place for fear to commandeer the heart of the caman man.
And the man behind that track joins us just now, Mr. Gary Innes. Mr. Shinty, really. Gary, you are synonymous in Scotland with Shinty from your playing days, your being involved in the commentary. Take us back to when you were a youngster. What did Shinty mean to you and your community?
Well, to be quite honest with you, Shinty meant, and still does, everything to the community of Speenbridge, the little village that I grew up in. It's 10 miles north of Fort William on the A82, and I've said it a million times to people, and I genuinely mean it. If you didn't play Shinty in Speenbridge, in primary school in particular, you didn't play sport, because that was your only outlet, your only option to play sport. And when I tell people that, they laugh and they say, but I mean, you know, you must have played football, or you had a chance of playing rugby or tennis or, you know, other sports. And it's like, nope, absolutely not at all. If you didn't pick a Shinty stick up in the village of Speenbridge, in particular in primary school, then you had no option of playing any team sport. So growing up, for us, I mean, my dad played, my grandpa played, you know, watching the local team, they're called Lochaber in the village of Speenbridge. You know, a Saturday very much was walking up the field and catching the, if it wasn't the second team or the juniors, then you're watching the seniors. And it was just a way of life for us.
Yeah, it's brilliant because, well, it's I suppose the only game in the world that is particularly Scottish, isn't it? I mean, everybody kind of plays rugby or a bit of football, but Shinty is ours, isn't it?
It very much is ours, yeah, and it can date back to 2,000 years. Now, there's great debate of the Irish sport hurling, and of course, hurling is synonymous across the world. There's very few countries that the Irish aren't over there playing or having little knockabouts in fields on Saturday and Sunday afternoons and things like that. What came first can't actually be proven. Obviously, the Scottish will try and claim Shinty, and the Irish will try and claim hurling that came along first. But they're both basically from the same kind of era. They both can, historically and factually, when you look back, date back to at least 2,000 years, and played in Scotland predominantly amongst clans. And nowadays the game has evolved, and we can talk about that in a moment. But going back to those historic days, they were played with hundreds and hundreds of men, and quite often over days, and just big fields, and it was very much a social gathering.
That's an amazing thought to think that these guys get together, and I suppose the outcome is immaterial at that stage. It's a get together. It's or was it always competitive?
Well, historically, Shinty derived from sword fighting, and it was a way of protecting yourself. And so when someone, swinging down on you, you learn to protect yourself. And when you're swinging across at the ball, for instance, it's about the blocking and the cleeking. And so the sport, or the art of Shinty, as some call it, is very much from sword fighting. So if you go back to your clan days and your history, then when you're swinging bits of wood at each other and things, as much as it's about putting the ball in the net, that was quite often secondary, because it was very much about skills of sword fighting and protecting yourself. That would obviously mean that you kept your life going into battle.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me actually when I look at Shinty, because I've got to say, I think it is the most suicidal game I've ever seen, and I played rugby for years. I mean, you have obviously got no care or consideration for your own body, because it looks quite violent. Would that be fair to say?
Well, to stop you right there, you just made a great point there. You said, it makes you, when you watch Shinty, think that you have no consideration for your body. Now, as a Shinty player watching a rugby player like yourself, Bruce, and other rugby players, I think exactly the same. I look and I think, my goodness, that must just be like running into a brick wall. I mean, that guy looks about 18 stone, But I think the beauty with sports like Shinty and rugby, and very much when they're full contact, is you learn how to protect yourself. And when you learn how to protect yourself, you learn how to ride the challenges. And in actual fact, it's very much, as much as you're looking at someone taking a big haymaker or a big swing at you, and the ball's maybe just a foot or two away from your head, and to the ill-informed, you look and you think, oh yeah, geez, that was so close, he nearly lost his head or his teeth and things. But to a Shinty player, it's usually, and I'm meaning that lightly, it's usually very calculated, and you're very much aware of how close they are and when to go in, when not to come in. And exactly the same in rugby, lacrosse, other kind of full contact sports too.
Yeah. Now, there is this story that Shinty is the precursor to ice hockey in Canada and America. What are the pointers to that being true?
Pretty strong, to be honest. Yeah. So what the Shinty used to get played in ice in Scotland as well, and like lochs and little ponds and all that kind of stuff that froze over. And they called it Shinny, Shinny. Now, when the Highland clearances in particular happened and people were getting shipped off all over the world at that point, the caman, which is the name of the Shinty stick, the caman was very much getting packed with a lot of these people and headed over to Canada. And they started playing shinny on ice. And, if you look back in Canada, shinny was really, really popular. And that is the direct link from ice hockey is shinny. Now, shinny is shinty on ice. So, yeah, there's very, very strong connections in the ice hockey has derived, obviously, and evolved over many, many years into the game it is today. But, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, all these men left Scotland with their camans playing shinny on ice, and all of a sudden, there you have a direct link from ice hockey to shinny.
Obviously, you wrote that song. You're a really well-known and well-respected musician in Scotland. Again, musician's hands and Shinty, quite an incredible thing that you managed to get through your playing career, which involved, representing, captaining Scotland all over the world with it. and yet you're still able to play the accordion. Any hairy moments along the way?
Well, certainly. And do you know, Bruce, there was one game that I even broke a nail that I painted in the morning. Oh yeah, it was always a worry, but it was something that I never let kind of come to the forefront of my mind, because yes, it was always there, and yes, I broke fingers and wrists and thumbs, and you know there was a certain time that for 6 weeks I had my hand in what was basically essentially a boxing glove. It's like a plaster cast, but instead of doing it to your elbow, they do it to your wrist. And I used to wind off the strap of the bass hand and then put my hand through it, and then one of the band would then screw it back in for me, and then I would play it in and out all night with this kind of arm sticking out and things. So I mean, there was loads of incidents and things, you know, broken cheekbones and nose, and I ended up having to get rhinoplasty, basically a nose job, because the Irish captain Tommy Walsh had my nose round beside my ear. I mean, it was great for sniffing round corners, but I mean, it didn't look the prettiest, and I did struggle to breathe with it. So yeah, the surgeon in Inverness said, look, well, I think we'll have to take the old rubber mallet to this to fix it for you. So they did, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, like the sport though, and like anything, you know, there are injuries, and you never, ever, ever play shinty and don't think you're going to get injured. It's inevitable. You're always going to get hurt at some point.
Well, just finally, you know, the song, The Caman Man, I take it you wrote that about your own experiences of the game.
I did, yeah. I wrote it as a poem. I finished playing shinty in October 2014 after my last Scotland game. That was it. I hung up the boots, and I was away touring and playing music so much that, to be honest with you, the last 2 years that I actually played shinty, I think I was there maybe a handful of games throughout the whole season. So I knew it was very, very much coming to the end of my playing. A number of days after that I had finished that last game, I sat and wrote this poem. And it sat there for maybe 3-4 years until I recorded the Era album in 2018. And at that point, I thought, well, I'll put a wee melody to it and I'll record it. And so is the Caman Man.
Well, Gary, it's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you. Thank you so much for giving us a wee bit of an insight into shinty and, of course, the musical world. And, of course, people can find your music. Man Ran, obviously the main band that you're involved with. How can they find out any of your music from there?
Yeah, if you just jump onto www.manran.co.uk, or my own personal website is www.garyinnes.com. And while we're talking about the sport, it's www.shinty.com. And be sure to add in the T when spelling shinty, or you'll get a very different Google search coming up for you.
Brilliant, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Take care.
Oh, that really was good fun. I mean, we've cut that down a little bit because we started just havering as old pals kind of tend to do. But you could listen to Gary talk about shinty or music all day. Actually, he's so passionate about it. Really,
I know what I'm doing in the next break. I'm going to be googling shinty.com without the T.
Well, we should point out Gary's probably not able to Google anything because he has moved from Glasgow up into the wilds. And that's why the internet the speed there was going slightly stuttery here and there, but yeah, he's moved back into the Highlands, which is great. I think there's a lot of musicians having done that actually recently during COVID times, finding that getting out of the big city isn't perhaps everything they dreamed of. Time to get back to the Highlands. We've just got a little message here from Roddy McLennan. The caman shinty stick is simply a shepherd's stave, an implement used to propel stones at predators or control stock. Its use developed as training for war and the use of the claymore and long-handled axe. Hurling and shinty are the only two sports where the stick is held with the left hand forward of the right, a direct link to Gallic warfare. Whoa, thank you for that, Roddy. That's brilliant. I was sitting here going, when he was talking about the swords, I went, that sounds like a PR thing.
No, it makes total sense to me, actually. I'll add that into all my guiding in future years.
And of course, the guy at the beginning of that whole thing, the song, the guy who was singing it was Robert Robertson, who's got a real connection to Outlander, Caroline.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Robert Robertson is the lead singer of Tidelines, and if you've never heard Robert, where have you been? And you'll be very grateful that we've now introduced you to him, because there's not one tour I ever do in Scotland that doesn't get to hear Robert Robertson and Tidelines singing. But the connection that Robert has to Outlander is that he was asked to write the Gaelic lament that you hear in episode 1 of season 4, when everybody in the pub sings the lament at the end of the burial scene of one of Sam's friends that had been hung. So that is Robert's connection to Outlander, which is great, because it's any of the music that you listen that Tideline plays is just a joy. He's got such a good voice.
Absolutely. Well, coming up later in the programme, keep tuned, because we've got some brilliant music from Davey Holt, a great singer and songwriter, all about Shinty as well. He's got one. We have got an absolutely fabulous poem with an insight into old Inverness coming up from Hamish MacDonald as well. But just now, I think you're going to give us a wee chat as to what we're about to see now, Caroline.
Yes, as I mentioned at the start of the programme, Julie Much, one of the Inverness Outlander members, had the good fortune of meeting up with Sam and Graham when they were filming Men in Kilts a couple of years ago. At the same time, it was with her daughters, Caitlin and Chloe, and one of their friends, Amber. Now, I went along to meet them to ask them a little bit about Shinty, because all three of them play for the Inverness Shinty team. And they'll answer and talk a little bit about women's Shinty, the Inverness Shinty team, meeting up with Graham and Sam. And unfortunately, Amber was not able to be there on the day because of COVID restrictions. I could only meet up with Julie and her daughters. But I'll let you listen to what they had to say.
So, although women have played Shinty for as long as men have, women's actual teams is quite recent. Am I right, Julie?
That's right. I mean, there have been a few women's teams that have been playing for well over 10 years, but the majority of the women's teams have only been within the last 10 years. So it's really a growing game for women's teams.
And we're here in Inverness at Buck Park, which is the home of Inverness Shinty.
That's right. So this is where we play. This is Buck Park, where the senior teams and all the women's teams, junior teams and primary teams play.
And when was the club established?
So although Inverness has played Shinty for over 100 years, the formal team was established in 1887, and the CAMANACHD Cup, which is the big World Cup basically of Shinty, was played here over 100 years ago. But at Buck Park it was played in 1923, so it's coming up to 100 years since it was first played at Buck Park.
And how many women play now?
We've got, I think, 25 that actually play in our leagues, but we've got many more girls coming up through our Shinty Academy. We have got a big push on in Shinty in Inverness. We've got about 15 primary schools all playing Shinty, so we've got over about 500 children playing Shinty, our Shinty Academy.
So just behind the stadium you can see a hill, that is Tomnahura Hill, and you'll find that on our Outlander walking map of Inverness, and it's also going to be featured in our April show if you want to tune in to hear a little bit more about it. But we're now going to hear about the occasion when Julie and the girls had the good fortune to meet up with Sam and Graham when they were filming for Men in Kilts. So how did that all come about, Julie?
Well, it was basically just a big coincidence. We were down at the CAMANACHD Cup final in Fort William in September 2019, and unfortunately the game was postponed at half time because it was torrential rain and the pitch became unplayable and the players were basically falling everywhere. So just before we came back from Fort William, which is 2 hours away in the car, I looked on my phone at social media and I noticed that the Culloden Tavern, which I follow on Facebook, Sam and Graham had been there just after being at Codder Castle, and they had mentioned that they were going to Culloden Battlefield afterwards. So I quickly messaged the two other admins from Inverness Outlanders, Lisa and Sinead, and I said, I don't know if you want to go up to Culloden Battlefield, but seemingly they're heading up there. So they went off to Culloden Battlefield, and I thought, I'll never meet them because that's 2 hours away, not a chance. But anyway, by the time we got to Inverness, I phoned Lisa and Sinead and they said, yeah, they're still there. So I thought, right, let's go up there. So we went all on, and of course we were all dressed in our Shinty gear anyway, because at the final. And as soon as we got onto the battlefield, my name was called out, and I thought, oh, okay, how do they know my name? And along came Michelle, the producer of the show, and she said that they were wanting to do a Shinty segment. And the person that was showing them around Culloden Battlefield, Katrina, she's also a Shinty player, but for the opposition. But she had mentioned that we play Shinty. So we arranged a time that the next morning that we could meet up with Sam and Graham and just do a short segment about Shinty. We could only do it on the Sunday morning because we were playing a competition on the Sunday afternoon. So on the Sunday morning, we met them at Castle Loud, which is the Mackenzie Castle, and it has a Shinty pitch right next to it. And so we talked to Sam and Graham about the history of Shinty and what Shinty's about, and then we did a couple of demonstrations with them.
Then you play with little tiny balls, and we used to play when we were discovering America, all the time with the Indians. Yes.
And I believe there was a couple of incidents on the day, Chloe, am I right?
Yeah, I high-fived him after I scored a goal against Caitlin.
Is that right?
Wasn't fair.
And you nearly had a high five of a different type, Caitlin.
Yeah, I was doing keepy-ups and I almost hit Sam in the head, which would have been unfortunate.
You'd have had quite a few people coming after you if that had happened.
Can you imagine that? Sam goes through all these series of Outlanders without getting a sword through him, and he ends up getting defaced by a youngster playing Shinty in Inverness. That is great. It's great to see the women's game taking off as well, really. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's met women. It's quite recent, as Julie said, and it's the fact that mothers and daughters all joined up together at the same time. It was excellent.
Yeah. So we are going to take you way back in time just now. As usual, Hamish MacDonald has done something very special for us. This poem that he's put together and the footage, you're going to see Inverness. I don't know when this is filmed. 1910, 1920, somewhere around there, I'm guessing. I recognise some of the bits of Inverness, but there's a lot of stuff that is completely gone. So this is a wonderful, wonderful piece of work put together by Hamish MacDonald. So please sit back and enjoy this.
This is the glen, this is the field, Inverary, Kinloch Shield, 170 from end to end. This is the field, this is the glen. This is the wood, the bough of the tree, Lochaber, Bewley and Portree, 3'6" of solid ash, the darting run, the chase, the clash. A solid ball of cork and leather, played down years of winter weather, on frost-hard turf or parks of green, Kingusie, Oban, Aberdeen. As Glenorchy makes the telling pass, by Loch Broom, Lewis and Strathglass, Glengarry takes the field of play, Cole Glen, Tainault, Caberfay. As Lochaber, Newtonmore and Kyles, ghost past Glasgow Middergiles, Lovat marches on to glory, through Glenurquhart and Kilmorey. Fort William braces to defend, while Strathspey reels from end to end. Boleskine tolls the witching hour, through Inverness and Aberdour. From Ballachully's shaded valley, Loch Carron, Tayforth or Kilmally, if Strachar dominates the play, does Lochside Rovers win the day? A trail of cups and souvenirs, a ball sails back through bygone years. The shoulder charge, the swinging calm, the skirl of pipes, a savoured dram. The Aird, Fort William, 1990. Skye's men play their finest shinty. At Mossfield Park in 84, King Yussey bested Newtonmore. The Camanachd Cup of 37, Oban Celtics rode to heaven. The year of 1896, the day King Yussey upped its sticks. From hillside fields on each new year, the crack of wood, the shouts, the cheers. A shot flies far beyond the hail to land upon some ancient tale of how Cuchulainn in his time would fell whole armies in their prime on battleground to make a stand with just a caman in his hand. Or how Columba sailed ashore with strange provisions in his store, with sticks and balls to lay the claim of bringing some old Irish game. From brae to field, from loch to glen, assembles some great host of men to split their number equal sides, then play for joy and local pride. The epic match of Ranach Moor, the day the south were swift and sure, the Camanachd bond runs deep and strong, remembered in the exile's song. These days the trophy on the shelf proclaims a district's finest 12. The clubhouse wall with proud displays remembers teams of long gone days. There's other pastimes, sports and games. Some talk of legends, halls of fame. Yet Shinty stands from first to last as sticks ring down through timeless past.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Hamish, for putting that together. 1937 was when that film footage was put together. As soon as I saw the buses at the beginning, I thought, what am I talking about? Buses in 1910. Brilliant to see those faces, though, isn't it? Just transports you back.
Oh, it's just what footage? It's historic,
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, the first time I've seen that, I love the old bridge we used to have here in Inverness. You know, it's just. It looked fantastic. I realise it probably wasn't suitable for modern day traffic, but you look at it and go, oh, could they not just have kept it?
I have to say, Bruce, I'm with you there. There has to have been a way. 60s town planners have to have a word with.
Yes, we'll not put that into a programme. That might be a different programme altogether. But thank you again, Hamish. Wonderful piece of work there altogether. We've still got more music coming up as well. Davey Holt's got a great song about Shinty. But we were talking at the beginning, Caroline, about Glenn Tonkin and his involvement in Outlander.
Yes, well, I'll just start off by telling you how I met Glenn, because Glenn actually runs, together with Scott, that you also saw earlier on, and another chap who was an extra in Outlander, They work at Toncam Flooring and Interiors down in Newtonmore. And any of you who have been over to Scotland and visited many of the Outlander filming locations will know that the Highland Folk Museum is just down the road in Kinussie, which is a neighbouring town to Newtonmore. Now, I was looking for new flooring for the very room I'm in at the moment, actually, and I came across the exact company I was looking for, which was Toncam Flooring down in Newtonmore. So they were coming up to measure the floor. And the minute that Glenn walked in the room, he could not believe it, because I actually had a full-size cardboard cutout of Sam from series 1 in my living room. Reason being, I'm very proud of it, as you can imagine. I was given it as a tour guide. I was given it by one of the companies that I do Outlander tours for, Inverness Custom Tours. And I still believe that one day Laura and Ian are going to come and ask for it back. But I was so proud to have it that it stood full size in my living room. And of course, the minute Glenn walked into the room, he wasn't shocked. He knew exactly who Sam was, because of course, it came out that he had been an extra in the Shinty scene in Outlander, because he and many of his colleagues that play for Newtonmore were asked to go down. Now, Glenn was actually played for Scotland's under-21s as well. So they all fitted the bill. Now, you would see them in the shop, but they were there as extras just to fill up space. So they did a lot of running around. It was a very physical involvement in Outlander. And I'm really sorry that we can't show the Outlander scene. It would be so good to show it and try and spot some of the guys. Yeah. But obviously we don't have the copyright for that, do we? But I caught up with Glenn when he was in Inverness the other week, and I just had a few questions that I thought you might like to know answers to, a little bit about Shinty, a little bit about Outlander, and how it went on the day.
So, an ex-Newtonmore Shinty player, tell me a little bit about the big rivalry between Newtonmore and your neighbours Kinussie.
Newtonmore and Kinussie, it's a huge rivalry. If anyone follows football, it'd be the equivalent to Celtic v Rangers, or Manchester United v Liverpool, or even Man City v Man United. It's your absolute classic derby match. Two villages are 3 miles apart. Most of us have all grown up together through school, all work in similar trades and things, but yeah, on the day it can be pretty fierce. It's the big, it's the big game that you really look forward to. There's a lot of banter between the fans, a lot of it quite vocal, a lot of choice words used as well. But even leading up to it, you always get that sense, you'd be friends with a lot of the guys, and yeah, you wouldn't talk so much leading up to the game, but then once the final whistle goes, you shake hands and you get back to normal. Hopefully you can all enjoy a pint or two. So.
And the one thing that I know about Shinty, and you get the sense of it when you're close up and you hear when the sticks collide or when the stick hits the ball. It's a very brutal game. Do you often get injuries? What kind of injuries do you get in Shinty?
There can be a lot of injuries. Just with the nature of it, it's a wee bit like hockey without rules. So there's no real restriction of where you can swing. So you can swing in the air, on the ground. I think it does come with this label that it's quite an aggressive game, but at the same time it's really fast. It's very, very skillful. At the same time, you're taught how to protect yourself. So if you do get hit, sometimes it's your own fault. Not all the time, but most of the time it should be. But yeah, me personally, I've broke my nose 4 times. I had my ear split in half. I punctured a lung. I think I lost nearly an inch off my finger where I fell in front of the ball. And yeah, so there's all sorts of injuries. Leg breaks is obviously quite a common one as well. But no, they're a hardy breed. So yeah, they get on with it.
Tell me, you appeared in the Outlander Shinty scene. How did that come about?
It's basically through one of our Shinty colleagues, so to speak, Paul MacArthur. He was asked to help coordinate the scenes. So there was quite a few of us from Newtonmore got the phone call to come down as extras. Not really knowing what to expect, but I think there was about 6 or 7 of us from Newtonmore. There was a few Glasgow Mid Argyll boys. and a lad from Inverness. So yeah, it was different to your normal game of shinty on a Saturday, that's for sure.
And it was way before Outlander had even appeared on the screens.
That's right, yeah. So at the time we just didn't know, what to expect really, and I guess as the years have gone on, it seems to be a very, very popular series. So great exposure for the game, and yeah, the scene was pretty good fun to film.
And which role did you play?
We were just extras, so in amongst your superstars, we were kind of in the background, hitting each other and having a bit of a laugh on the day as well. But yeah, it was good. It was good fun. I think Paul had the hardest role. He had to try and make it look quite an authentic scene. But we were at Doon Castle, and as far as pitches go, it wasn't the best of conditions. So it was more of a field. And the sticks that we were given were almost like branches off the trees rather than the usual camans that you're used to. So, but yeah, one or two of the boys that are pretty skillful, they found it still easy to hit the ball around. But yeah, it was good fun. Good fun.
Were you involved in any training for Graham or
No,
Sam?
not at all.
No.
Not at all. I think Paul might have been, but yeah, they were very inquisitive on the day, and it was great. They asked a lot of questions, and yeah, we showed them what was all involved. So yeah, they seemed quite keen to learn about the game, which was nice, because at the end of the day, we wanted the shinty scene to be as authentic as possible, which I think it came across pretty well in the end. So.
And looking forward to later on this year, I believe the 18th of September, it's the big Shinty Cup final, the CAMANACHD Cup final, taking place in Newtonmore, I believe.
Taking place in Camanachd.
Oh, I do beg your pardon.
Rivals, but and saying that, our own shop's in Camanachd, so when we first took on the shop, we were actually tempted to paint it blue and white, which is the colours of Newtonmore, but we thought our windows wouldn't last too long if we did that. So, but no, there's a huge day out as far as Shinty's concerned. I think Camanachd did host it once before, many years ago, and they're putting on a huge effort to make it a great occasion. So as part of, I think they're calling it the Final Fling, which you'll be able to search for on social media. And after the actual Shinty final, there's a concert, I believe, which features Gary Innes's Manran, and also a band called Pete and Diesel, who are certainly popular these days. So it should be a great day out. I think tickets are on sale for it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, with all what's been going on, we'll be able to enjoy that occasion. So.
Well, good evening everybody. It's lovely to be asked to contribute once again to this great wee show, and nice to be asked to do one of my own songs, or rather a song that I wrote in collaboration with my great friend and musical colleague Stuart McIntosh. Stuart is a great accordion player and is also a very, very well known Shinty goalkeeper. He plays and actually currently coaches Glen Urquhart Shinty Club. And we formed a band together about 10 years ago now. And with him playing Shinty and me at that time living in the village of Newtonmore with one of the most famous Shinty teams, we wanted a Shinty name for our band. So we went with Caman. And the Caman is the name of the Shinty club, which is the Shinty stick, which is wielded by the players. So we wrote this song together. It's called the Caman, and it gives you a bit more detail about the great game of Shinty. In the north and west of Alba, the Caman rules the land, wielded by warriors with strength of will and hand. They battle in the glens and they battle on the shore, the bravest and the hardest fight till they can fight the Lord. And it's face to face with Caman's cross, they battle for the ball. The ancient game of Shinty is the greatest of them all. As the battle rages on, it's man to man they fight. Victory must be fought for, it's not a given right. The ball will fly free end to end as Camans clash and swing, until the ball that hits the net yield the famous win. And it's face to face with Caman's cross, they battle for the ball. The ancient game of Shinty is the greatest of them all. subside, to fight another day with passion, grit and pride. So here's to the CAMANACHD, honest, strong and true. Long shall the cannons clash and the battles continue, and it's face to face we cannons crossed, the battle for the wall. The ancient game of Shinty is the greatest of them all, and it's face to face we cannons crossed, the battle for the ball. The ancient game of Shinty is the greatest of them all. Go! Thank you very much. That was the Caman. And incidentally, I'm actually wearing a Scotland Shinty shirt today. A bit of a retro one. This goes back to, I think, 2012. So it's getting a bit battered, but hope you enjoyed that, folks. And if you want to hear any more of me performing, please look out on Facebook and give my page, The Lockdown Gigs, a wee like. And there's gigs on there about 3 nights a week, so that is The Lockdown Gigs. So thanks very much, hope you enjoy the rest of the show, and I'll see you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Great stuff from Davey. We were lucky enough to be sitting out in the garden having a chat with Davey and his partner Simona on Sunday. It was absolutely freezing. There was a howling gale and it was raining, but it was other people to chat to, so it was great. He's such a great character, and his lockdown shows are absolutely brilliant to watch. Really good, magnificent Scottish songs from over the years. Now, remember, we would like you to get in touch. There's so many of you got in touch tonight as long as the programme's going. But if you'd like to get in touch with us by email, the email address is there, hellothehouse@yahoo.com. And we're looking for any stories you have concerning Outlander, any thoughts you have about the programme, positive, and any other things that we would be looking for, Caroline?
Not really. Normally we've, I mean, any pictures that you've got, maybe when you were at a Shinty match, if you were over here, or if you were in Newtonmore, or if you visited any of the places that we've mentioned in the show tonight, or of anything that you think other viewers of the programme would be interested in seeing because it ties in with any of our subjects. Yeah, no, it's a really great to see. I mean, we've got people from all over the world in touch tonight, even somebody in Plymouth in Devon as well, but they're all over the United States as well, which is absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much for keeping in touch with us. We have got some big Outlander news, I think, Caroline. Well, it's big news, but I can't imagine that there's anybody in the Outlander fraternity that doesn't know that Diana Gabaldon announced that she has finished the 9th book, Don't Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. So obviously we are absolutely thrilled, but I think we all know that if you happen to bump into Diana Gabaldon in the next wee while, please don't ask her when it's due out, because as that particular post alludes to, it's out of her hands now. She has done her bit, and we're now just, it's another waiting game. It's still a Outlander, and we're just waiting on the publishers. I'm sure it's months away. We're keeping our fingers crossed it might be this year, but I think I know that a lot of people have started rereading the books. I'm certainly rereading book 8, but I think some people I know are starting from book 1 and doing 1 to 8 in readiness for book 9, which I think is sheer dedication. That's absolutely brilliant. But, well, obviously we've talked about Men in Kilts, but really exciting news coming from Culloden Battlefield just now as well, isn't there? Absolutely. A couple of items here, because Culloden Battlefield just recently launched a new free 360-degree tour of the battlefield. You can get it on the website Virtual Visits, and as you can see with that on the screen, it was actually narrated by Graham McTavish, and it explains to us exactly why Culloden happened, the build up to the battle itself, and post Culloden. So if there's anything that you thought you needed to know in addition to what you've heard, that is definitely the video to go to on Virtual Visits. Virtual-visits.co.uk. Yeah. I had a look at it yesterday. It's absolutely brilliant.
I could have actually, I wish I'd had more time yesterday. I would have sat down and watched the whole thing. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, very, very, really good facts. You're glued to it the whole way through, and very, very easy to understand. No, nothing's complicated.
Unlike those times.
Another thing, while we're talking about Culloden Battlefield, I'm sure people are aware that next month we commemorate's probably a better word, the 275th anniversary of the Battle of Culloden. Now, as like last year, we're not able to go ahead with the commemoration event as we would have done, but Culloden Battlefield on the 17th, is a Saturday, have a series of free online events that you can sign up to. They'll be joining up with the Gaelic Society. There'll also be a talk about Charles Edward Stuart, which I'm definitely going to be listening to. Was he an Italian dandy? Was he a selfish alcoholic? Or was he in fact a charismatic prince? There are various views, and I'm sure it'll be interesting to see which one we think at the end of the discussion. And there's also be a discussion that 275 years on, why Culloden still matters and why it is a place worth protecting. So that's, you can tune into the National Trust for Scotland on the 17th, but do make sure you've booked in advance. It is free, but book ahead.
Yeah, no, there's some amazing things coming up. Our next programme as well is going to be rather special. We've got loads lined up. We're going to tease it out over the weeks, I think, most of what is going to be happening. But Inverness Outlanders are very much involved, aren't they?
Am I allowed to say?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, Inverness Outlanders, together with MacGregor's Bar, are delighted to announce that we are actually going to be coming live from Culloden Battlefield on the 16th of April. Culloden Battlefield have given us access to the grounds, and we are able to do a live special Culloden anniversary show for you. And we are so excited at what the contents of that programme are going to have. As Bruce says, we will keep you informed over the next couple of weeks of what we have planned as it all comes together. But we're working very hard to bring you an extra special programme for the 275th anniversary of the battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's just about it. We've got normally do a little bit of Inverness news, I suppose.
Can I do one little thing that ties in with the live show? My Inverness Outlander committee would have my guts for garters if I didn't say that on the day we're also going to be doing a live wreath laying ceremony. We're raising funds for the wreath, and any that we raise in addition to that will go to Culloden Battlefield. But you can donate if you wish to Inverness Outlanders via Facebook or Twitter. I believe they're putting it up on the feed at the moment to let you know. But we will be doing that live at 1 o'clock, which was the time the battle started. So at 1 o'clock on the 16th of April, we'll be laying the wreath live on behalf of Inverness Outlanders and everybody that makes a donation.
Yeah, great. Well, that is us for this month. As we say, we've got loads coming up for you next month, which we're going to start work on tomorrow. I'm going to leave you with a little track that I suppose is Inverness news of sorts. This is it's a charity single actually, which just recently I put together with members of BLAZIN Fiddles and a whole host of musicians, including Gary Innes, who you saw earlier, and including Nicola Benedetti, who is, I suppose, one of the world's most famous violinists these days. There's the likes of Ali Bain and Phil Cunningham, there's Julie Fowlis, there's about 7 BBC Radio Scotland Young Traditional Musicians of the Year involved. There's members of Skerry Vore, all in there as well. So this was a charity single put together to help raise funds for an ex-Scotland rugby star called Doddy Weir, who has MND, and he's desperately trying to find a cure for it and try and make people more aware of the disease. And he's just in January they raised £1 million. They've raised, I think, just under £7 million since they have actually started. Oh. It's a horrific debilitating illness, which at the moment they don't really have any cure for, but they are making a little bit of progress in finding out what might be causing it. So if you find your time, look at this video, and then you'll maybe be able to have a look at mynameisdoddy.co.uk. My name, number 5, Doddy, DODDIE.co.uk. He played for Scotland and the British Lions, an amazing man altogether. So this is Doddy's Dream, and until next month, we'll see you later.
Bye.